in case you didn't know it, in Washington state, you are paying into a reparations program. We broke this news on the show last year because this bill had gone completely under the radar. It was House Bill 1474 during the 2023 legislative session. And I remember covering that session. And I had no freaking clue about this bill until I started getting word that it was going into effect. And I'm like, the covenant home ownership, what? So they called it, again, House Bill 1474, the Covenant Home Ownership Program. And essentially what it did, do you have this, Nicole? Yeah. Essentially what it did is it created a fund where if you went to the recorder's office and you were, you have all these documents that you have to file when you buy a home. So it's like $100 a document, $100 a document, $100 a document. And that money went into this Covenant Home Ownership Program, as they called it. It was just a really fancy phrase for reparations. But they refused to call it reparations. And I think that's why it didn't get a lot of attention in 2023 when it was being debated, is because they were calling it this Covenant Home Ownership Program. And no Democrats during debate or anything called it reparations until it passed. And then the bill's prime sponsor, the day it was signed into law by the governor, and it was too late to go back, said this.
You may not have heard, but this is the first in the nation statewide reparations bill.
Yeah. So then it was like, oh, take the blindfolds off. It was reparations the whole time. And so one of the other things that they couched this in, and I think this is a really good example of how a bill as it passes, we talked about this on the show the other day, you have to think about what the bill's intent is. What is it going to become? We talked about this with the pay per mile tax, right? Where, right now they're saying it's optional and they're not going to put transponders in your car, but we know eventually they're going to have to because we can read between the lines. So one of the things when they were debating this bill that they said is, this isn't like a gift of taxpayer funds, because what this fund is used for is to provide no interest down payment loans. So if you had to there was really no proof that your family had been discriminated against from a housing perspective, but essentially you had to be Black, and you had to have some sort of tie to the state before a certain point, and then you could get this loan, interest-free loan from the state that's paid for with money that other home buyers had to pay into this. They had no choice but to pay into the reparations program. But the idea being, you have to pay it back. You're eventually going to have to pay it back. It's just interest-free. So that's the way they sort of softened the blow of this, right? It's like, no, it's not a gift of taxpayer funds. They got to pay it back. It's just an interest-free down payment assistance so that they can get into home and experience home ownership and build generational wealth. So when you look at it from that perspective, okay, maybe it's not so bad. But again, we always pay attention to where they're heading with things. And now we have this bill, House Bill 1696. What do you think it does? What do you think it does? It says, just kidding, you don't have to pay the money back. Just a full-on reparation paid to people who don't have to show any proof that they were ever discriminated against in housing. Here is a text of the bill. An act relating to modifying the Covenant Home Ownership Program for a program participant who has a household income at or below 80% of the area median income. A special purpose credit program authorized under this section may fully forgive a loan entered into at any time once the loan has been outstanding for at least 5 years. So it's just a gift. Now it's just a gifting of taxpayer funds, if they pass this, to modify the Covenant Home Ownership Program, which was just reparations, so that any of you that buy a home are now helping some random person of color whose family may or may not have been explicitly discriminated against in housing. Now you're just having to foot the bill for their down payment. It's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional as it exists. Because again, if you're a white person, you can't benefit from it. And the law doesn't allow governments to do that. So I know that there's a similar battle going on in Illinois, a lawsuit against a policy there. I'm hoping that someone files a legal challenge, if they haven't already, against our home covenant ownership program. But now, if they amend it they're not paying back the loans. So it's a gift of taxpayer funds to people based on an immutable characteristic being the color of their skin. And I have long said that I would support reparations if they were specific to families whose land was taken, whose homes were taken, who were explicitly prohibited from buying a home in a certain city or a certain jurisdiction or a certain area, because they would have legal recourse against the government, right? They could sue over that. But this is much different. This is broad. Oh, what color is your skin? Let me hold up my skin color chart. Yep, free down payment for you, courtesy of the taxpayer. It's so wrong. And again, this is what they'll do. They'll slide something in. This doesn't sound so bad, right? Home covenant program. It's a loan. You have to pay it back. It's interest free, but you got to pay it back. No big deal, people. And now it's reparations gift. No repayment. Just insane stuff. Truly insane.